Good evening. I would like to call to order this regular meeting of the Board of Education of the School District, Metropolitan School District of Washington Township, here on December 14th, 2001. Please let the record show that all 5 board members are present this evening. And Dr. Brown, would you mind, is Dr. Brown here?
He was in the building.
Dr. Milliman.
Dr. Milliman.
Would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Milliman. With that, we move on to approval of the consent agenda. Dr. Woodson.
Thank you, President Deswaner, members of the school board. I would like to recommend that you approve the consent agenda for this evening. The consent agenda includes the minutes and records of the November 22nd, 2011 and November 22nd, 2011 memorandum special session, a claims docket in the amount of $4,334,153.91, and the HR report, which includes certified personnel inclusive of 6 new appointments. That's appointments numbers 52 through 57, 2 resignations, that's number 5 through number 6, 3 retirements, numbers 2 through number 4, and a classified personnel report inclusive of 5 new hires, hires number 83 through 87, 4 resignations, resignations 33 through 36, 2 retirements, number 9 through 10, and an addendum to the certified HR report containing 1 new hire, which is hire number 58. There aren't any non-competitive grants, gifts, or donations to present to you tonight for approval.
Mr. President, if no members of the board have any questions, I would move that we approve the consent agenda as presented by Dr. Woodson.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions about the consent agenda, board? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Dr. Woodson. And as I continue to get used to our new agenda format, Mrs. Spanrati, would you mind reading our mission statement? We've made it a practice as a board at our first monthly meeting to read our district mission statement to remind us all why we are here.
The mission of Washington Township Schools is to develop lifelong learners and globally minded citizens by fostering the academic, creative, and social skills needed to achieve excellence in a multicultural environment.
Thank you, Mrs. Spanrati. Dr. Woodson, recognitions.
I'm going to situate myself over here so that the board and our full house tonight can see everything. The first thing I wanted to do was recognize a few parts of the Human Resources report tonight. If Mr. Brannigan could come forward for me. Mr. Brannigan was a part of our Human Resources report this evening, and he was approved tonight by the board to assume the important role of principal at North Central High School. Mr. Brannigan certainly is not a stranger, not only to North Central, but Washington Township. But we certainly do want to highlight a little bit about his goals and aims of assuming the position at North Central High School. As we know, and we will honor in a few minutes, Mr. C.E. Quant is retiring, but this position did not come after Mr. Quant's retirement announcement. In 2008, the school board voted for Mr. Brannigan to become the associate principal of North Central High School in anticipation for him to be the successor as principal. So this transition to the principalship has been occurring the past 3 years. We did that because we knew the importance of a seamless transition for the large flagship high school of North Central High School. So I think we'll see that occurring, and I would love to give the mic to Mr. Brannigan to introduce your special guest and family members and just tell us what your thoughts are assuming this fantastic role that we know you're prepared for.
Thank you.
I'd like to introduce first off my family's here tonight, my direct family, immediate family. My wife, Heather, who's the assistant principal at Wesleyan Middle School. My son, Cole, who I just embarrassed, who's a second grader at Greenbrier. My youngest son, Jaden, who's not going to stand up. There we go. My youngest son, Jaden. In regards to thanks, I've got to start with the person who recommended my hiring some 17 years ago, Mr. C.E. Quant. When he interviewed me during renovation, reconstruction, if you will, in what was then the gym/weight room, because the rest of the building was being worked on. And over the course of my career with him as a teacher, dean of students, assistant principal, associate principal, I'd like to say it, and he'll understand this more than most, one of the few people, I get you. I get your jokes. And I'm one of the few people who can actually name off some of those same old movies with you. So I got to find somebody to replace that, because otherwise no one's going to get me. I'd like to also say, in regards to specifically North Central High School, what a great opportunity this is for me as a professional and as an educator to take over one of the flagship schools in the state of Indiana, and some might even argue the flagship school in the state of Indiana. I've got big shoes to fill. He's done a great job of leading and sharing, and as I read in some of the many emails and comments that have been sent to me over the last couple of days, Mr. Brannigan, we're proud of you, we thank you, and we look forward to you. To the community of Washington Township, I thank you. I look forward to working with you. I look forward to leading your children.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. Thank you. No handshakes. It's all about the hugs.
Still kind of slight. Yeah, I want a hug.
We had another principalship appointment in the HR report that the board just approved tonight, and that is Greenbrier Elementary, and it's my privilege to welcome Mr. Farron DeBell to the Washington Township community. If you could come forward. Mr. DeBell hails from Chicago. About 2 weeks ago, we found out that our Greenbrier principal, Mr. Kaminsky, is he here? Mr. Kaminsky, can you stand up? Mr. Kaminsky has accepted a principal's position in Hamilton Southeastern after many years of doing tremendous things at Greenbrier Elementary, and we'd like to take a moment to appreciate everything that you have done. So 2 weeks ago, we posted the position. Obviously, it's mid-year, but we wanted to cast the net and see what applicants were out there. We got about 100 applicants in, and obviously, that's 100 applicants with licenses to be a principal. That doesn't mean you can be a principal in Washington Township. Our expectations are much higher. So out of that pool, we had our Director of Human Resources, Dr. Brown, our Director of Elementary Education, Mrs. Marsha Reynolds, screen a lot of applicants. They interviewed a lot of people to get our top applicants to our community who interviewed them last night. So we had 2 applicants interviewed by parents, teachers, administrators in the district, and central office administrators. And there was one applicant who came flying to the top, and that's Mr. DeBell. He is from Chicago Public Schools, where he is the principal designee at Fraser International Magnet School, which is a primary year's international baccalaureate school. They opened this school 5 years ago, and at the time, about 63% of the students that they had were passing their Illinois state standardized test. Over 90% of his students qualify for free and reduced lunch. Over 90% of his students at this school were students of color. So to most, they would look at that population and say, wow, that's really challenging. That's a lot of work that needs to be done, a lot of complexities. Well, in the past 4 years, he's raised their achievement to almost 95% passing the state standardized test. And that qualifies them to become a 90-90-90 school, which is a research-based model and framework for excellence in schools nationwide. When we saw that on his resume, I was actually at IB headquarters of the Americas in Bethesda, and there were designees or representatives from Chicago Public Schools there. And I went over and I said, I need to share a name with you, the applicant or the principalship I've been talking about, to see if anybody knew of applicants. Well, a name just came in, and it's from your district. And I shared the name, and the face told me everything I needed to know. The face told me that he was a superstar. I'm going to pass the mic to him, but he will do wonderful things not only for Greenbrier, but he will be a value add to our entire district. So with that, Mr. DeBell, I'll give you the mic to say a few words.
Good evening, everybody. I'll be brief. I keep saying that, but I'll really do it this time. I am really, really honored to be in Washington Township. A couple of things that attracted me to Washington Township. One is that I was looking for a place to raise my young son, not so young, 11-year-old son, and Washington Township really shined. Mr. Brannigan, he's going to be at your school at some point. It's going to be a few years before he gets there, but looking forward to that. And the other thing was your commitment to all of the students in the whole district. Chicago has tried to embrace IB. We actually have the largest number of authorized IB schools apparently in one district in the world, but we only have a handful of PYP schools, and there is no continuum. So we don't see that one student makes it all the way from kindergarten through 12th grade in the IB program. That's something that you guys should be proud of, something that I intend to be proud of, and something I intend to help continue the continuum at Greenbrier. I spent several hours today with Mr. Kaminsky, Dr. Kaminsky, and I appreciate everything that he's done for me. Can we give another thanks to Dr. Kaminsky? I'm going to spend a little more time. I'll be here all next week working with Dr. Kaminsky and learning a little more about the school, and I look forward to meeting with everyone, talking with everyone, getting input, and taking Greenbrier to the next level.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's nice. Well,
You started something new, Mr. Brannigan. Mr. C.E. Kwan, if you could join me up here so that we could recognize you properly for the countless years you have been in Washington Township. Please. This was the Northern Lights. Big dedication to him in the next issue. We're very, very proud of Mr. Quant. We do want to read some things about him to the community, but before we do, we have a little gift to give you for your January retirement reception, which will be held at North Central High School. So if you could bring that, and if you could assist him, we're going to roll this out. This is something for you to take to your reception. Thank you very much.
Dr. Woodson?
Yes. Oh, the board would like to see it.
The most important part of this whole thing is the word living. That high importance to me, yes.
Mr. Quant is truly a living legend in secondary education in the state of Indiana. When you look at the accomplishments of North Central students and staff, including its academic achievements, its remarkable performing arts department, its commitment to high standards for all students, you see the commitment and excellence that is the trademark of Mr. Quant. His quiet dignity, to some, I had to add that to some, his respect for colleagues and his leadership abilities have made North Central one of the exemplary public high schools in our nation. We're grateful for his 40-plus years of service. 40-plus. Mr. Quant began his teaching career in Washington Township as a science teacher at West Lane Junior High School. Now it's West Lane Middle School. In 1971, he continued his service as chair of West Lane's science department and later as its assistant principal through 1983. That year, he was named assistant principal at North Central High School and then was named principal in 1995. Former Washington Superintendent Dr. Eugene White, who appointed Mr. Quant as principal of North Central, said this about him: "I congratulate C.E. Quant on the great performance and celebrate the end of a truly outstanding career in education." Dr. White added, "C.E. has been an outstanding educational and professional leader for North Central High School. He has moved the school to a higher level of academic success and created greater opportunities for students in the classroom and in extra and co-curricular programs and activities. Washington Township has been blessed to have C.E. Quant for so many wonderful years." North Central teacher Carolyn Gates echoed many colleagues when she said, "Over the 35 years I've known C.E., I've admired his consistency and kindness. He always works towards high expectations of moral and academic excellence for his staff. It has been an honor to work for C.E." Latin teacher Steve Perkins says, "There are those who are trained to lead and those who are called to leadership. C.E. Quant is the latter category. A Latin student in both high school and college, he's been incredibly supportive of both the Latin program and of me as a teacher. While I have appreciated his support, it is the fact that his support derives from genuine academic interest that is most impressive and has most benefited the entire school." C.E. often said that the high tide floats all boats. His intellectual interest, his care for students, and his ability to lead combined to carry a ship of lofty heights. Mr. Quant will be honored at a reception at North Central High School on January 19th from 3:30 to 5:30 in the Student Center. And because Mr. Quant is always so student-focused, we do have the Student Council President here, Mr. Holloway, who would like to say a few words as well.
Thank you, Dr. Woodson. My name is Vincent. I'm the Student Council President at North Central High School, and I'll be brief as well. Wow, Mr. Quant.
It's enough.
Thank you so much for all the support that you've given all the students throughout your years. Been very supportive, a great mentor to everyone. So we have a thank you card from Student Council as well as, I'll give you that, and I'll have you hold this up as well. A souvenir NC Superfan shirt for being obviously a North Central Superfan and of Washington Township. So thank you very much for all your service to the school in Washington Township.
Thank you very much.
The school board also has some remarks, and as they come forward, we would like to present Mr. Quant with a Living Legend plaque that commemorates his years of service to Washington Township.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Quant,
All down there, don't you? Nothing overlooked.
We thought we were going to have to go to page 2.
on behalf of the entire board, we would like to extend our great gratitude to you for 40 years of excellent service to this district, many as principal at North Central High School. You set a very high standard. We know and are confident that Mr. Brannigan will be able to fill those very large shoes you are leaving, but we greatly appreciate your service and your exemplary work on behalf of the district for students, for patrons here in Washington Township. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate that.
And I was only going to chime in on just a couple of points. I think the biggest achievement, or something that just speaks volumes about you, Mr. Quant, is the fact that you've worked so hard with parents over the years. I had the good fortune of being one of 27 PTO presidents who worked with you over the years. Always found that you were great to work with, and I'm going to really miss coffees with Quant. So I hope we can do that at some point down the road. And I want to thank you for all of your hard work on behalf of our kids, which was always heartfelt and biggest thing.
My reception on the 19th.
Okay.
We will do that, and we just want you to know that as a token of our appreciation, the board members are going to be making a contribution to the foundation on your behalf and honoring you and your service with a brick here in Washington Township.
Many of those over the years. Thank you very much. Don, thank you. Tony, appreciate it very much.
Everybody's going to leave.
If we could have the North Central High School senior football players and coaching staff that is present come over to the side. We are moving now to our formal recognitions. Hi, how are you? The North Central senior football players did a community service project that we certainly want to recognize them for, but I would like the story best told from a student. Would you mind telling us what you did very briefly, and then what was the best part of that activity, giving back?
All right. Well, I was the kicker, the varsity kicker for our North Central football team. I know it's kind of hard to believe, 5'7", 145 pounds, kicking for a Class 5A school. Anyway, from my point of view of like the football team and the program, it was like really unique because I didn't practice a lot. Like I was at practice, but I was mostly on the sidelines stretching or like going through little drills, and I was able to watch what Coach Shelton was able to do with all the guys, and it's no wonder that he was able to turn our program around like that. Like once we bought in and actually listened to a great coach, it really is. It's like it's amazing what he could do for us, and our record definitely showed.
And did you participate with Ronald?
I did.
Tell us about that.
That was very fun. I love community service. It's just like what I like to do. And I was very happy that we were able to miss a day, like half of a practice of 2 days. I was very grateful for that. So it was definitely well worth my time.
Fantastic. Coach Shelton, we have recognition for the football team to hang at your pleasure, and then we have a certificate for each player who participated also in the community service. We appreciate your fantastic coaching and just wonder if you were his speechwriter for tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you. The board would also appreciate it. Footsome, if you could come forward, and if any of your coaches are here. Footsome is a senior at North Central High School, and few distance runners have dominated the sport nationally like Footsome has. A 3-time state champion in the 3,200 meter in track and field, and a 3-time individual state cross-country champion, Footsome is setting a new standard. This fall at the cross-country state finals, he covered the 5,000 meter race in 14 minutes, 48 seconds, .8, the fastest state finals time in 8 years in the IHSAA meet that has been held. Footsome is the third young man to win the meet 3 straight years in a row. But it doesn't stop there. On December 4th, Footsome won the Nike Nationals that was held Saturday in Portland, Oregon, running a time of 15 minutes, 3 seconds to break the 5,000 meter course record by 7 seconds. That was a couple of weekends ago. Last weekend, Footsome completed the Foot Locker National Cross Country Finals on Saturday, December 10th in San Diego, and he came in second by 0.6 of a second. We are extremely proud of you, Footsome.
Well, I'm glad to get recognized with the greatest people what they have done for Washington Township, and it would be nice if I could take a picture with them because I don't think I would get this chance again.
Absolutely. Why don't we have the board join us? And Mr. Quant and Mr. Brannigan have been requested.
His athletic prowess is, unmatched nationally, obviously. It came down to two young men that were heads and tails above everybody else. 30 seconds behind was third place at that particular meet, and when he won at Nike, it was about the same margin. So it came down just to those two. But more importantly, I think Washington Township needs to know, all the media always came to me after all those interviews, the media crunch, and said, what a breath of fresh air. He said he's so gracious and humble. He did North Central and Washington Township proud.
Next, if Vicki Ayers Benson and April Oldham could come forward. These two outstanding teachers have been recognized nationally as nationally board certified teachers. And I want them to just take a moment to say, what did it take to become a nationally board certified teacher, and how did it feel when you actually had that accomplishment? And tell us where you teach and what you do at that school.
I teach at Allisonville. I'm a special education teacher, and it was quite a journey. I started a couple years ago and did a take one, and at that time I had another a friend of mine to start the process with me, and it was really good to be able to do that with her, keep me on track. And then last year I decided to finish up, and it took a lot of working with Glenda Rich, who helped tremendously, writing and rewriting, looking at my videos and rewriting some more, spending all of the snow days last year with paper all on the floors and my computer, and then all of spring break with papers and stuff all over the floor. And my husband had to deal with me the last days packing up in his conference room and having my papers, portfolios all over the table, and then realizing that I had transcribed my ID number and had to reprint everything and going. So it has been quite a journey. I've learned a lot. I think it's probably one of the best professional developments that I have had, and it makes my teaching a lot better.
I would agree with what April said. We started the journey in Take One together the year before last, and we both decided to move on and finish our certification. And it was a lot of work, but you know what? I think what we did, it's nothing that teachers don't do every day in Washington Township, but what we did was we documented what we do. So, I've got a lot of support at North Central. Mr. Kwan has always been amazingly supportive and encouraging of me, and I thank him for that. And Mr. Brannigan's always been there to remind me to get over myself. And yeah. So, and I somewhere probably 350, 400 hours worth of work documenting what we do. And it's not that we necessarily did anything different than we normally do, but you don't take the time to videotape yourself and really evaluate what you're doing, and that time for reflection. And it was just the best professional development. And I'm also just really incredibly lucky that my husband and daughter didn't kick me out of the house when I was freaking out trying to get this done. So, my husband, James Benson, my daughter Cece. Say hi. And Cecilia, by the way, when she saw you, said, "That's Christina's mommy." So, when all's said and done, right? You're right.
With me tonight is my husband, Donald, and two of my children, Donald and Sarah. And also with me are my parents at Sun Sally Thurston.
Fantastic. Allisonville Elementary School. Any staff who is here from Allisonville Elementary School, if they could come over at this time. On November 4th, 2011, I received a letter that I'm going to read a portion of to you. It says, "Congratulations, Washington Township. We are pleased to inform you that Allisonville Elementary has been awarded the Title I Distinguished School Award for exceptional student performance for 2 or more consecutive years. This award comes with many national accolades. People from across this nation will look to Allisonville Elementary to see how they're accomplishing such wonderful academic achievement for students. It also comes with $50,000 to support the continued good work at Allisonville, and that is clapworthy." Mr. Pomerenko, we know that it takes an entire staff, an entire parent community, and outstanding students to achieve such a goal. What can you tell us about the process that it took to become a nationally Title I designated school?
Well, number one, I have a great team. Chad Wallace, grade 3. Kathleen Ferguson, language arts title. Stephanie Johnson is Alan, math, a former student of mine that I taught 19 years ago, okay? I recruited her. Andrea Hunley, our assistant principal at Allisonville, and then you just met the Distinguished Award winner here. So, what it took, number one, we have a great staff. We had a plan. We worked hard. One of the best things the township has done is after we looked at our PLC teams and came up with our plan, when Dr. Whitson came to the township, she brought Jim Frakes in as consultant. And folks, when you look at money well spent, that was money well spent. And what he's able us to do is come in and show us the data, look at what we're doing, look at our subgroups. And a year ago, in February, we were looking at what we were doing, and we weren't making the progress that we wanted to make. And I said, hey, we're going to change it. We sat down together as a team. We're going to do this. We looked at the staff. We made a video on conferring, and we really focused on one thing. And we did one thing very well, and it paid off. The other thing is we got our results in June, and when we looked at our results, I go, whoa, we did it. We got exactly where we wanted to be. We worked hard, and we were successful. The problem is that when you deal with the state, that 3 weeks later, when the results came out, it's called undetermined. And we had as many undetermined, which counts as failures, as we did failures. And I go, whoa. We also had, if you saw, there was a school district north of here, and they had a student that went and took during ISTEP, went for a funeral, and we had the same thing. Well, we challenged that, okay? And I'm very fortunate that I have a very supportive boss. And when I went into Marcia Reynolds, I said, Marcia, this is wrong. You got to help me. And Marcia, of course, got on the phone, called the State Department up, and every single one of those students we challenged and questioned, we got change. So for I would like to say a big thanks, and let's give Marcia a hand for all her support. Also with that is wonderful parent support, a great team, and a great place to work. And we got 3,000 more. We said it's expensive to go to Seattle, so they give us 3,000 more. So 6 of us get to go. We get to present in Seattle. We get to present before Dr. Bennett in April, and I've been asked to serve on a national panel, and really excited about that. So thank you. A lot of hard work, and thank you, Dr. Woodson.
Thank you. Last on our recognitions, but certainly not least, Ms. Sutton, if I could have that last stack. Thanks. We'd like to call several significant supporters of our Washington Township Schools Foundation up. Could representatives from the Central Security and Communications, City Securities Corporation, CSO Architects, Skillman Corporation, the Health Foundation of Greater Indianapolis, and Key Bank come forward, along with any representatives from the Washington Township Schools Foundation. And then pass these things. Good to see you. I want to read a little bit about the support that these organizations give to Washington Township Schools. In its civic and community leaders, like those that you see standing before you, whose generosity it makes possible for our foundation to continue to improve teaching and learning for thousands of students in Washington Township. And to quantify that for you, the foundation has given back to teaching and learning over $3 million to support students in Washington Township. These donors that you see before you tonight were $5,000 special event sponsors, which help cover the cost of the event and will result in over $250,000 going to the annual grants fund, which teachers submit for innovation and activities in their classroom. These donors certainly understand the importance of strong and attractive, successful public schools in their communities to support their businesses, and it makes it easier to hire and recruit new employees for their organizations, creates prospective customer base, and a long-term relationship with the broader community. We are very, very appreciative for your continued dedication to Washington Township Schools and our 11,000 shining stars. Thank you very, very much.
As always. Good to see you again. Good to see you again. Appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Woodson. For those who may not have been through that process before, we certainly welcome you to attend the rest of our meeting, but we want you to know that no one will be offended if you choose to go home and enjoy the rest of your evening. At this point in time in our agenda, we move on to superintendent's announcements. Dr. Woodson.
Absolutely. I will tell you, after doing that, and it did take 45 minutes out of a board meeting, but to have all of those celebrations in a school district in an isolated month, Washington Township continues to excel, and it just makes me as a superintendent very, very proud. So it's worthy of the time that we spent, and thanks for everyone who attended. We had an advisory council meeting since the last time we met, and we discussed the strategic plan a little bit more, and upcoming at our advisory council, we'll be continuing the conversation on student hours. Our teaching and learning division is currently conducting quality assurance reviews with principals and ongoing site visits as a part of our quality assurance process and ensuring we are having academic excellence at all of our schools. I attended the Nora Community Council since the last time we had a board meeting, and the Nora Community Council was jaw-dropped at the wonderful things Washington Township is doing. I sang its praises. They didn't know a lot about our International Baccalaureate initiative, so it was a very exciting evening having dialogue with the Nora Community Council. The Madrigal Dinner was magical as always that North Central Performing Arts puts on under the direction of Joyce Glick, and we had a fabulous time that evening with my family. I also attended, as I alluded to before, the International Baccalaureate headquarters, which is located for the Americas, which is located in Bethesda. They contacted us and asked to cover our cost for two of us, Allison Smith, our IB coordinator, and I, to come out and have dialogue with other districts who are trying to pull off IB for every student in all schools in their district. And there's only a few of us nationwide who are doing this. So the unique challenges and the unique successes that has are very different than an isolated school in a school district doing that. So they wanted to have further dialogue. We were able to give feedback to the IB executive leadership team on different aspects that are challenging us just because we're a district. We had rich dialogue. We had a half-day professional development with Tony Wagner, who is the author of The Global Achievement Gap. So it was a rich 3 days of learning. We had lots of takeaways as well as lots of opportunity to give feedback. I also volunteered at Robin Run Village, and it was an afternoon that I was supposed to only spend a few hours and ended up extending my stay because I was having such a wonderful time. While there, I met a wonderful couple who had a rich history in the district as teachers, as supporters, as parents in the district, and it was just delightful to have the conversations with them and get educated on the historical perspective of our district. The CEC Holiday Open House is tomorrow from 3 to 6. It is a slightly different time this year. We pushed it a little bit later to accommodate schedules and feedback that we have had. The last day for students is December 22nd on Thursday, and teachers will report that Friday. And I certainly wish everyone a relaxing winter break, and second semester will begin January 9th. The last little item I had was I had a meeting at the request of Senator Jean Barreau today in my office, and we had a fantastic dialogue. I educated her, as I do any politician I come in contact with, the great things we are doing here in Washington Township, many of which she was unaware of. I also shared perspective on some of the current legislation and its impact specifically on Washington Township. So that was a very, very good meeting. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Woodson. Indeed, those recognitions reminded me of a plethora of gifts that we often think of in this season, and a reminder that the district is doing great work and has a lot of wonderful people involved. With that, we move on to the time set aside in our agenda to hear comments from the public. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board on topics of interest this evening? Hearing none, we will move on to our action items. First item is first reading on amendments to board policies. 3120.1, job sharing, 5512, use of tobacco, 5320, immunization, 7434, use of tobacco prohibited, and policy 9160, public attendance at school events. Dr. Milliman.
Thank you. Nothing keeps a party going like a talk about policy, is there? We're going to do it anyway.
There is a business to run.
There is. Thank you, Mr. Zwaner, members of the board. Mr. Turner and Mr. Zwaner and I have met on several occasions to discuss policy. We have several more coming your way as the school year progresses. But first of all, I'll go through these briefly for you. Policy 3120-1, job sharing policy. The Teaching and Learning Division office has actually initiated a discussion on this policy about job share. Our current collective bargaining agreement references a job share policy numbered 4124. we discovered that our current policy manual does not contain a policy 4124, and therefore it does not contain a job share policy. Upon further investigation, Neola does not even present a policy 4124, but they do present 3120 as a job share policy. So that is why that is in front of you today. It fills two voids for us. One, it does place a job share policy in our manual that is referenced in a contract, and it also provides a true policy number from Neola in our manual. So upon acceptance of this policy, administrative guidelines will be developed. So as you can see, it's a rather brief policy, but there will be guidelines that our administrative team will develop around that once it is approved. 5320, immunization. The revision of this policy brings our current policy in compliance with our current statute. That has been reviewed by Valerie Reed, our health services coordinator, to make sure that it does list all the proper vaccinations and cross-referenced with current code. 5512 and 7434, use of tobacco prohibited. This revision of policies provides additional language prohibiting the use of electronic cigarettes that dispense nicotine through a vapor or any other kinds of substitute means of nicotine dispensing or smoking devices. 9160, public attendance at school events. The revision of this policy adds language addressing ADA compliance in two ways. One, by providing equal opportunity for the purchase of tickets, and number two, providing assurance to the public that the use of service animals is allowed in buildings during these activities. Should you have more questions regarding these policies, I would ask you to contact Mr. Deswaner, Mr. Turner, and myself between this evening and our next meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Milliman. Board, are there questions for Dr. Milliman or Ms. Harris?
Not a question exactly, but a comment.
Sure.
I appreciate that, given that it's been a little while since we've actively been reviewing policies, I very much appreciated the succinctness and the limitations on what we were given for this first go-around. So thank you. It was enough that I could get through it all in a short period of time.
Thanks.
Mr. Kay.
I just had one proposed amendment, and I know this is first reading, but just to suggest something to think about. The public attendance at school events, I was just kidding when I said I had 100 corrections and interlineations. I just have one thing. And only on the public attendance at school events policy, which is 9160. Try to make this not as boring as it probably already is for anybody who's listening. The first paragraph says, the Board of Education welcomes the attendance of members of the community at athletic and other public events held by the schools in the district, but the board also acknowledges its duty to, it says, maintain order, preserve the facilities of the district during the conduct of such events. I think you should insert before maintain order, safeguard the safety of students and staff. I think it's more about that. I mean, obviously there are fire limits and all that, but there are a lot of other reasons, obviously, that we can't always admit everybody that we want to. So I just think right before the word, right between, well, it says duty to, it should say safeguard the safety of students and staff and to maintain order. Maintaining order sounds like people standing in line.
Gotcha.
Which I can appreciate. But.
It might be helpful if you send that to us, too, as a suggestion. I hope we get that wording.
Well, I would just question whether or not we're creating any new or additional liability for ourselves by holding ourselves out as being able to do that.
My perspective would be no, because it's such a clear thing that we have that obligation anyway under the law. But and you could say it's its goal or duty, but I don't think you increase the duty in a policy any more than we have the duty already.
If I could just offer, board policy requires that we go through two readings before we actually make any amendment. This is first reading, so it allows all of the board to offer suggestions, ask questions. We'll get any suggestions you might have in writing. We'll work with Dr. Milliman and Neola to make sure we get appropriate legal review, and we could then bring any actual changes to this proposed changed language back for second reading. So appreciate those questions. If you, upon further or more detailed reading, have any suggestions about changes, please let Mr. Turner know, and we'll work with Dr. Milliman and Neola and legal counsel to get that taken care of. Any other questions, comments, or suggestions on the first reading of the proposed amended bylaws?
If not, Mr. President, I would move that the board approve for first reading or on first reading policies 3120.10, job sharing, 5512, use of tobacco, 5320, immunization, 7434, use of tobacco prohibited, and 9160, public attendance at school events, as presented by Dr. Milliman.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, board?
One bit of discussion. Just wanted to thank you, gentlemen, for your hard work on this initial.
We're only about a third of the way through, actually, but thank you very much. Not just on these, but on in totality.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the first reading of these amended policies, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Dr. Milliman.
Welcome.
With that, we move on to our second action item, approval of a school calendar for the year 2012-2013. Dr. Milliman.
Thank you. As you are aware, many stakeholders have provided feedback on various calendar options during the 2010-2011 year, as well as the 2011-2012 school year. School calendar was a priority topic during our Washington Township Advisory Council meetings this fall. During those meetings, we gathered hundreds of pieces of feedback from teachers, students, administration, and parents. These meetings were held not only at the CEC, but also at Eastwood and West Lane Middle Schools in an attempt to assist in improved attendance and accessibility. We also traveled to a large apartment complex on the west side of our district to give another opportunity for stakeholders to present their opinions. In addition to the Washington Township Advisory Council meetings, many community members and parents sent direct comments to our administrative team. We also reached out to child care providers such as AYS, YMCA, and the JCC, meeting face-to-face with each of the providers to determine what barriers and challenges they would see with the new calendar. And finally, we created a survey and gathered input during that in that manner. The survey represented 604 stakeholders, 370 parents, 82 students, 160 staff members, 40 community members, and 22 administrators. The Washington Township Education Association also conducted surveys of our faculty, which provide additional information and reaction. The calendar presented this evening for approval is an attempt to incorporate, to the best degree possible, the input of our many stakeholder groups. We have stated before that no calendar can succeed in being exactly what everyone wants, as we have many constraints to consider. However, we do believe that this calendar balances the differing viewpoints while maintaining a relatively balanced semesters, with 88 semesters in this, 88 days in first semester in this option and 93 days in the second semester. And just as a note, the bulk of our standardized tests, as you are aware, does take place during second semester, which does affect the instructional time and, of course, the balance of instructional time on the two semesters. This calendar is unchanged from the draft that I presented to you at the November 22nd meeting. Reviewing the calendar, you will see the following highlighted dates. The first faculty days would be Thursday, August 2nd, and Friday, August 3rd. The first student day is August 6th. 1 week fall break would take place immediately following the end of quarter one, Monday, October 8th through Friday, October 12th. 1 week break during the week of Thanksgiving, Monday the 19th through Friday, November 23rd. A faculty day is built in on December 21st, which precedes a 2-week winter break beginning the week of December 24th and resuming school on Monday, January 7th. A flex weather day is built into the calendar on Monday, February 18th, and spring break would be held on March 25th through March 29th, with school resuming April 1st. As a note, we did attempt to place spring break immediately following quarter 3, but there are some state-mandated reading tests for our elementary students that take place during that window, which made that impossible. The last student day is noted on Friday, May 24th, and the last faculty day, Tuesday, May 28th. We did show additional weather days at the end of the semester for stakeholder feedback to make that clear that those would be make-up days should they be needed. And that kind of concludes the highlights of the calendar. So we do plan, as a point of information, to discuss the 2013-2014 calendar this spring. I'm doing cartwheels about that as a side note. No, it is something that we do need to take on, and we do need to make some decisions, I think, for our stakeholders, our parents certainly, to make some plans over a 2-year period. And so all kidding aside, I do look forward to getting that discussion rolling, so our community can make plans for a longer stretch of time.
Thank you, Dr. Milliman. Are there questions of Dr. Milliman about the process that we've been discussing for the last 2 months, Board?
I guess just for the record, Mr. President, and I've asked this question before and had it answered, and this does not indicate a dissatisfaction with the answer, but just because there are others who continue to ask it. The reason to do this now, as I understand it, is because we've studied this both this year, the district has, both this year and last year, and as I know Dr. Woodson has said on several occasions, this represents the best way of accomplishing what it is that you'd like to accomplish at this point in time. The district would, recognizing that it's a 6-day tweak,
yes,
if you will, as opposed to the some more dramatic alternatives.
Right. There was more barriers with the 2-week breaks that several of the districts around us have adopted. Some centered around testing windows, important tests that our students took, but also dialogue with our child care providers as well as parents, with some significant challenges during those stretches. And while there was significant feedback from our teachers, certainly over a 2-year period, as you pointed out, of wanting to explore a calendar with some extended break times, certainly through first semester, this was something that we felt we could accomplish both of those objectives with. So that did lead us to this particular option.
Thanks. Ms. Harris?
I had 2 small questions, I think small questions. The first is just that while this document says draft only, this is actually the administration's recommendation.
Yes, could have worded that recommendation draft, I suppose, yes. That will quickly change to a approved calendar, and we'll discuss, should you approve it, a good way to communicate that it is up on the web and when it is there, and communicate that to all of our schools so they can notify parents and provide a link to that on their newsletters.
And then my second question had to do with the date of graduation for North Central or commencement exercises. And I don't know, I know it was an issue about if there were makeup days, if there were weather makeup days.
Right.
How do you get people there if they're after the commencement, but the commencement would still be held in a traditional timing?
Right, and the high school administration did not share any concerns with this version infringing on that. We would have to go a little bit deeper, I think, before we would have that issue. So they didn't express it. We would have been facing that with the 2-week breaks, because I would have pushed that farther into June, and then if we would have had weather days, we would have been up against it there. So.
Any other questions, Board? I would just like to say, Dr. Milliman, Dr. Woodson, I think the process that you used in vetting this proposed change, the different variations that were proposed, that were vetted, the feedback that was received, the changes that were made, there are an incredible number of competing interests that are involved here.
Absolutely.
And I think the proposal that you've brought to us is a good attempt to accommodate as many of those as possible, recognizing that what we want to do is to try to find the best way possible to continue educating students here in Washington Township. So I just want to thank you for that. I know it wasn't an easy process. It was not a simple or quick process, but I think it was one that, while we all may not be happy with all aspects of it, I think has done a good job of working through as many of those issues as we can. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mr. President, do you want more comments now, or do you want a motion and then comments, or does it matter?
I don't think it matters.
Well, I could make a few comments, just briefly. I wanted to thank the administration as well, and I think that Dr. Woodson, board members don't usually make recommendations, but I think that you ought to have Dr. Milliman do this job forever. Doing it.
Look at his face. Look at his face.
I'm fine with it, actually. I make jokes about it, but I'm absolutely fine with it. It gives me an opportunity, honestly, in all honesty, to meet with a broad range of people, and I miss the students, and honestly, the best part of the advisory council meetings are when the students attend, and I'm able to interact with them, so it's fine.
Well, I individually am satisfied that I've heard a wide range of viewpoints, so I've appreciated the fact that you've had the many meetings. I keep calling it the task force, the advisory council. I'm getting better. And I think we've all heard, Ms. Spanarati and I have heard at those meetings, but then all of us here at Marsh and Kroger and everywhere else we go, what people think about this. And initially, I was very much concerned because, and I guess this is fairly typical when you have any kind of new idea, I wasn't hearing individually a lot of comments about this, and I thought, oh God, because this is something that affects everyone, and to not hear comments is terrible. But I think that I'm satisfied at this point that we've heard, and
that's a good point.
No comments that included, at least in our email or what have you, an expletive or anything like that. They were all, people with very strong opinions about different notions having to do with the calendar. I also wanted to say that me individually, one thing I just wanted to point out, because we all have different experiences, but every once in a while somebody talks about a year-round calendar. And that idea, at least as long as I've been in Washington Township, and it's interesting how you blink and all of a sudden you're the old man or the old woman anywhere. But I'm now, one of the ones who's been around for a long time, and the idea of a year-round calendar has never caught fire here. It doesn't mean it doesn't have proponents, but this notion that's included in the calendar of having a week at Thanksgiving is something I have heard about positive comments for a long, long time.
Right.
So it's interesting to see those things, and I have appreciated seeing the efforts that the administration's made to accommodate all the different interests. I don't think that happens in a lot of places. It doesn't mean you don't have to make hard decisions, but and hard recommendations. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Harris?
I also just wanted to comment that, just kind of for the record, because when we started discussing a calendar more similar to certain districts that have already gone forward, I think it bears repeating that we are not doing this for the purpose of creating remediation opportunities, and we're not undertaking to offer programming during those weeks off other than regular child care arrangements that might be held at the school. So I think it just is sort of a good thing to state up front that those are not our primary goals with this calendar, and it's not something that we are planning to do at this point. Just to make sure expectations are in line with what we're thinking.
There's no further discussion. Do we have a motion?
Mr. President, I would move that the board approve the 2012-2013 school calendar as presented by Dr. Milliman.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any final discussion, board? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The motion passes unanimously. And with that, we move on to approval of Cabinet Fringe Benefits Revision. Dr. Brown.
President Dwanzer, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Woodson, I'm asking your approval of the revised Cabinet Fringe Benefits guidelines that were presented to you in your board packet. The only change really is the removal of specific title positions that are listed on the document, the second paragraph in that, and it kind of allows the superintendent to designate those things. So at this point, that's pretty much the only change that's being requested. So,
Mr. Kite?
I've read, Dr. Brown, the memorandum, and I've seen the description, but just for the benefit of the public, because not everybody is able to jump on the website and navigate as easy, despite the fact the website is much improved, is able to jump on the website and maybe look at the document. Could you be a little more specific about the changes in, you said, I think, title, just for the benefit of those who would listen to this meeting later?
No problem.
Not necessarily a specific example or an idea.
Well, I'll tell you, prior to this year, well, actually, the principal of the high school was part of the cabinet. And so the recommendation is that change be not exclusively to a particular person, but delegated or left at the discretion of the superintendent to determine who should be part of the cabinet.
It actually is very confusing. It listed 13 specific titles in our district, and then it listed the same last sentence you see in the second paragraph. The superintendent can increase, decrease, has discretion. So the only change we're recommending is the removal of those specific titles.
Right, and that's kind of the main thing.
Thank you.
All right.
And as shared with the board, the intention is to, at this point in time, keep cabinet with those administrators whose responsibilities include district-wide
Correct responsibilities.
roles. Right?
Correct.
If there are no other questions, Mr. President, I would move that that the board approve the cabinet benefits revision as presented by Dr. Brown.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion, board, or further questions?
One bit of discussion. It's not my prerogative. I think it's the superintendent's, as an individual board member. I know we can approve or disapprove this, but I think it certainly makes sense, at least to this one individual, as an organizational model. You're the superintendent, and you know what works, and it certainly makes sense to have the district-wide folks there, and for you to add people. I've been a part of other groups who add people to the meeting or invite them if there's a certain issue, so I think it's a good change. It seems to make sense.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Dr. Brown.
Well,
and we move on to our final action item for the evening, approval of the resolution authorizing the issuance of tax anticipation warrants in 2012. Mr. Licata.
Mr. Deswanner, members of the board, excuse me, Dr. Woodson, in your board packet you have a resolution authorizing the Metropolitan School District of Washington Township to make temporary loans to meet the current running expenses for the district for 2012. The district will be issuing a tax warrant for the Transportation Fund and the Capital Projects Fund in the amount of about $3.6 million in the Capital Projects Fund and approximately $850,000 for transportation. This is something that we do every year at this time, so it's just kind of everyday business for us, and it deals basically with improving the district's cash flow as we move into the new budget year. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Licata. Mr. Licata, is it possible just to give us a brief, for those in the public who might be interested in financing matters, a brief explanation of the difference in the cash flow that comes from taxable or property tax funds versus general fund revenues that come directly from the state?
Sure. The tax warrants are being issued in taxable funds, which are supported primarily by property taxes. The district receives property tax proceeds in, usually, there's two settlements a year. One is in June, one is in December. And the December settlement, typically a good chunk of that is used to pay off the previous year's tax warrants. And then we need the additional dollars moving into the next budget year in 2012. And then the warrants that we're issuing now in 2012 will be paid off next December. So it's kind of an ongoing program. With respect to the general fund is now, for the most part, 100% supported through tuition support by the state, other than some miscellaneous revenues, dollars that we collect at the local level. But most of the money in the general fund does come from the state in the form of tuition support, some specific grants for special ed, prime time, vocational programs, and things of that nature.
And those funds flow more regularly than the 2 times a year disbursements of the
We get a monthly distribution from the state.
Thank you.
When all things go well with the state.
And when the state finds money?
Yeah, that was nice. Maybe we'll see some of that.
Any other questions, Board?
President, I would move that the Board grant its approval to the resolution authorizing the issuance of tax anticipation warrants for 2012 as presented by Mr. Licata.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Licata. We move on to the final section of our agenda this evening, information items and board discussion. First topic, I believe, is the automated time system update. Mr. Licata.
If you recall, the district issued a request for proposal in the spring of last year for a time and attendance system for the district. We got about 6 proposals. We've now narrowed it down to 2 companies that we're particularly interested in. Both companies have come here and done a detailed presentation before a committee. That committee was made up of different stakeholders throughout the district. We had administrators from CEC, along with classified personnel, building principals. We had people from different departments, business services and payroll, operations, human resources, and technology. So we had a pretty wide group of people, from the people who would use it each day to, in a sense, clock their hours, work for the district, to the people at the building level who would have the approval authority at the building level, and then, of course, coming to the central office to be processed through the payroll department. We should have a decision on the vendor that we're going to select probably next week. We're in contact with the 2 companies right now, working on getting some final pricing from them and getting a few more questions answered before we do make our decision, making sure that we have their best and final price, the best that they can do for the district on this project. After we get a final decision made, I did mention in the memo that we would come back to you with a contract. That's only if we need to use a contract with the provider. If they're willing to accept a purchase order from the district in terms of this arrangement, then that's what we'll do. So there may or may not be a contract that we'll come back to you with in January. If there isn't, I'll let you know that we've issued them a PO and the amount of that purchase order and the payment schedule involved with that. After we have done that, we'll start the implementation process. There's a lot of work to be done on the front end as far as making sure that we've got all of our positions aligned, dealing with overtime, compensatory time, making sure we're in compliance with the Department of Labor, any state laws, things like that, so that when we finally do start to roll this out, it hopefully will be as smooth a process as we can possibly make it. Whenever you're implementing a new software package, there are always some bumps and some bugs that need to be worked out. We'll try to get as much of that done here in this building as we can before we take it out to the first school, and then whichever school we choose, we'll be able to refine it further at that point. And then once we get through that process, we hope to be able to add 1 or 2 schools in each pay period until it's fully implemented across the district. I'd be happy to entertain any questions you might have.
Mr. Kite?
Just one question, Mr. Licata. If you can answer this question without interfering with your ongoing discussions on price and other issues, and without mentioning names, just if you can get us, because I know that you said there's really 2 folks that are in this at this point in time, 2 entities, right, 2 companies. Are there functional differences in terms of the systems or the service contracts or anything like that goes with the 2 systems, or are they pretty close, dead heat, and you're just talking about price at this point?
They're very similar. They both do a lot of the same functions. Like with so many software packages, we will use the best pieces of it that suit our district. Would we ever implement 100% and do every single thing that package is capable of? Unlikely. I think you could say that almost about any software application. But both companies definitely can meet the district's needs and what we're looking for in this project.
Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to mention is that as we go through this implementation process right now, we're only looking at using this for hourly employees or classified employees. So we're not talking about having teachers punching in and out or administrators. So it is for the hourly employees, including bus drivers, custodians, basically all classified people. It may be a little more difficult with some groups of classified employees to fold them into this system, particularly bus drivers, because of the different shifts that they work in terms, not shift work, but in terms of they work in the morning, the afternoon, they do things in between that are paid with stipends, they have late runs, field trips. We may find that to be a little bit more of a challenge, but that may be the last group that we try to tackle as we roll this out across the district.
So you're still waiting for that elusive smartphone app that would be foolproof in this?
Actually, they both have that. They both have that capability where you could punch in and out with an iPhone or a smartphone. I'm not sure we're going to use that.
or integrate the GPS system in the buses, maybe?
Well, actually the smartphone part of it would have to do with GPS and where you actually are physically if you were to use your phone to punch in and out. It wouldn't let you do it from home if you're still in your pajamas. So.
Thank you, Mr. Leotta. Question, Mr. Turner?
I was just going to say, and I've said it every time you've brought this before, so tell us your progress. All I want to say is welcome to 2011. I've actually quit doing this manually, so I look forward to see what you bring back for us to approve.
Thank you.
We move then on to student hours update. Dr. Milliman.
Thank you. We have continued also to make student hours a priority topic at our Washington Township Advisory Council meetings. As was the case with our calendar conversation, we have gathered hundreds of pieces of feedback from a wide variety of stakeholder groups. At the November Washington Township Advisory Council meeting, which was very well attended, our transportation department did an outstanding job of sharing the many challenges associated with routing, with late bus routes, extracurricular transportation, as well as other mandated transportation Washington Township must provide. All of those things impacting and limiting our student hour options. Following that November meeting, we created an online survey, which went alongside our calendar survey. 504 respondents did respond to the hours portion of that survey and reacted to two options. Option one would begin our middle schools at 7:20, dismissing at 2:10, elementaries at 8:15, beginning at 8:15 and dismissing at 3:05, and the high school 9:10 a.m. to 4:20. Option two would begin our high school at 7:25 and end at 2:46. Elementaries would begin at 8:15 and end at 3:30, and the middle schools would begin at 9:10 and end at 4:15. Under option one, our middle schools would stay the same in their length of day. Our elementaries would gain 40 minutes, and our high school would actually lose 20 minutes under their current day. Under option two, our high school would remain the same in length with some minor alterations in passing periods. To accomplish that, our elementary schools would actually gain 65 minutes over the current student day, and our middle school would gain 15 minutes. Of those 504 respondents to those two options, 59%, I rounded up, I think it was 58.8 or something like that, did prefer option two. And I would just say that there is some compelling research that many of us are aware of that do favor later starting times for our adolescents. However, we do have several factors that will make that scenario very challenging for us. First being that all of our high school drivers do drive elementary routes. Therefore, the elementary day must be in the middle of our sequence. Number two, the significant and most prohibitive cost in adding routes and drivers if we were to change that sequence, obviously. Starting our middle school early actually causes some significant supervision issues for us. Certainly ending early and having events not start until later, having hundreds of students being challenged, the challenge of supervising them before those events. Starting our high school late also causes significant supervision issues and travel issues after school, and I think we've talked as well about our concern of students returning from away activities, visiting activities, pushing that midnight hour in many cases, we think. So that is a concern for us. We have a calendar in place to meet with a task force, and Dr. Brown will allude to that in regard to the teacher hours as well, as these are intertwined, of course, as outlined in our current teacher contract, and we'll discuss these options further with them. And we do plan, just as a point of information, to bring a student day proposal to you, if all goes well, to your first meeting in January. We would hope that we would have... Maybe later, sometime in January, with approval after that. So we like to think we would have something proposed very soon after we get back.
And I will say, I know I sound like a repetitive record, but I can't say it enough. The sole reason why we are looking at student hours is to increase the instructional day for our elementary students, because currently we have the shortest instructional day for elementary students in all of Marion County, and that's unacceptable. So that is the sole reason that we are looking at it. Obviously, to look at one level, you have to look at all of the levels, but that is the main objective, is to increase instructional time for our elementary students.
Ms. Harris?
Okay, my question is, if I was contacted fairly recently by someone who would like to express an opinion on this, where do I direct them?
They can email Dr. Milliman or I direct. We get daily emails about these topics, or they can go on the Advisory Council's front and center on our website. There are links there to give feedback, as well as information about what we have studied, the feedback we've gotten. It's all real-time updates on the website.
Other questions or discussion, board? Mr. Kite?
Since you said the word discussion, it's not really a question. I thought that one of the things that seems like it's, and I made up my individual mind on this either yet, but it seems like one of the things that I keep thinking about, this really seems to resonate more with people, even though there is a division of opinion, 60-40 essentially. It seems to resonate with people more since, as Dr. Woodson says, the purpose of it clearly, transparently, is just to increase, is to increase student hours. It's really interesting if you think about it, because I know folks have pointed out, and we have some pretty vocal people in the community that point out that the research is fairly one-sided. I've not looked at it, I don't know, but about how, and you just said it's pretty compelling, Dr. Millman. But as much as it is compelling, it's probably compelling that if we had a teacher for every student in the township, that would be a good thing, too.
Exactly right.
That's a good point.
Or an iPad, or both. And had great, unchallenged home situations and everything else. And for me, it just keeps bringing up that thing that I used to hear in school all the time, that, we can build a much safer vehicle than we all drive to work every day. It's called a tank, and we don't want to pay for it. We don't want all of the other effects that come from it. So it's interesting for me to see people talk about this. I think they're very heartfelt, folks who don't like the idea of any change. I still think some people get hung up on the description of why we can't just move the parts, why that isn't an option. But as you give the explanation, I thought
very complex. I mean, the routing, and our transportation department, as I mentioned, did an outstanding job of articulating that complexity to the best that they could in that setting. But and as a byproduct of these options, we have begun to see some ability to, basically have to reroute compared to what we're doing now, and some improvements in timing, quite frankly, of timeliness of bus drops and pickups that we've struggled with as we've added schools or added routes and closed schools and changed routes over the last several years, which has made it challenging to run our buses on time, quite frankly. So that could be a positive unintended outcome of this as well, even though the primary purpose is to add time to our elementary day.
And I'll also add that a lot of the options that people bring me are viable options at a significant financial impact to the district. So it's not that these options people are creating are impossible, it's the significant financial impact that goes along with creating that option with our current bus fleet, with our current number of bus drivers, and all of those capacities. So those are the complexities that get into it. It's not that these other possibilities aren't possible, but it's just at a significant financial cost, and that was one of the directives that I gave, is that we have to create these ideas without a significant financial impact to the district.
I know there were at least, and I've talked to Dr. Millman about this, there were at least a few parents that were, especially at the meeting at Eastwood, who were concerned that there wasn't, or wanted to know if there was a specific number.
Dollar amount, right.
Dollar amount. Mm-hmm. But again, I thought that your answer and the discussion that we had about that was great.
Right.
It seems like it's so clear that it's almost not worth tasking someone with coming up with a number that you know is going to be high. It's like saying that there's not an impact if you have 2 wage earners in a family and all of a sudden there are 1. I mean, it's clearly an impact.
Yeah, I recall that conversation. It was very similar to that when we sat around the table and we began thinking about, well, we'll have to add X number of buses and X number of contracts for drivers and X number. You get to a certain point where like, well, I couldn't pull the number out of the air because it got to going down that road. Yeah, it's just, well, okay, that's not going to work. We can't afford to do that. I mean, so that's very well said.
I wholeheartedly endorse the concept of making adjustments to expand the elementary school day, and as we look at how we do that within the constraints we have, I guess the one thing I would just want to make clear is that my priority would be the learning that happens during the school day. Sure. And as we look at how those adjustments get made, my hope would be that if there are impacts that result in after school or extracurricular, co-curricular activities, that those aren't the primary factors that make a decision for what happens then during the school day and the primary task of learning.
I will tell you, that is a burden to get out almost at 4:30 at the high school with that first option starting so late, ends very, very late. Significant concern for the after-school piece. But the also major concern by North Central staff and administration and a large group of parents is the loss of 20 instructional minutes with that first option per day. As we're talking about a per-day gain at elementary and how many instructional days that equals, a daily per loss equals out too over the course of 181 instructional days. So there are multiple reasons why we've received feedback that option number 1 is not favorable.
Any other questions, discussion board? Thank you very much, Dr. Milliman.
Thank you.
Appreciate the update. We'll look forward to more action in January, it seems. Final update information item is on the strategic plan. Dr. Woodson.
We had Dr. Brown on teacher hours.
Oh,
just a quick
my
update.
apologies.
It's okay.
I made a note in the wrong space.
They're both on hours.
Didn't mean to overlook it. I don't know how I could overlook it.
I think it's because I'm slimming down. If that works, I'll tell you another. No.
Get your hours update. Thank you, sir.
I'll be brief because we're just actually in the preliminary stages of our task force, which is in collaboration with our WTA in agreement with our collective bargaining. And so what we're trying to make sure is that, once again, opportunities afforded for that collaboration. With the new legislation, hours are no longer bargained. So it's a discussable only. And so under Indiana Code 20-29-64, we're now responsible for making sure we're not out of compliance with that. We can't even really, get into that conversation as negotiable. But we are responsible for allowing that opportunity to have discussion around what hours look like. So the task force primary responsibility is really just to have conversations around what that would look like, from as far as teachers' hours, teachers' day, especially in collaboration with the calendar and then the proposed discussion around student hours as well that Dr. Milliman kind of alluded to. The other thing is I wanted to just bring up to speed. I kind of shared a little bit of a timeline with you in our study session, but the dates, our first meeting is going to be on the 19th, which is this upcoming Monday. Administrators and the WTA has brought some teachers, and so we'll have that meaningful conversation around what that looks like. And so as we go forward, we'll keep you updated on the conversation, what their views are, what our views are, and then at some point, like student hours, we'll come forward with a proposal of some sort. So, any other questions, feedback, clarification? All right.
Thank you for the update, Dr. Brown. Now, Dr. Woodson, strategic plan update.
Absolutely. We don't have any major structural changes to the strategic plan that we shared with you in November. We have had since November discussions and meetings with WTEA. We've had small group discussions with them, as well as all of our division leaders meeting with WTEA to receive feedback on the strategic plan and have meaningful conversation. We had an additional conversation with our advisory council this month. At your seat, you have hot off the press the feedback from that advisory council. It was done by division, so each division leader asked some critical questions of the broad-based stakeholders about their work in their division, and it was a very, very meaningful time. We also have held, which is a part of the strategic plan, a beginning of reviewing our master facility plan from 2007, and we just need to review that, see where we are with that, and we have gathered a task force group to begin that review process. And our teaching and learning collaboration has occurred. Our teaching and learning division has collaborated via conference call with another big IB district on their strategic planning process and what that means with incorporating IB into the strategic plan. So the teaching and learning division may have some conceptual changes to their part of the strategic plan. It may be a visual change in how they're representing their focus for improvement over the next few years, but conceptually the main components of what you saw in November are still the pillars, but we may, as we're doing on a daily basis, keep continually updating it and revising it. The goal is to bring it to you second board meeting in January for your approval, so we'll have another information item in January to update you with where we are.
Mr. Cutt?
Just one, Dr. Woodson, were there any notions that came about as a result of that conference call that involved in non-structural changes that have to do with the IB program? Just any great ideas that popped that were shockers or...
No, and what happens in conceptually the strategic plan are the big areas of focus for each division for our district for the next few years. The other document that will be a supplemental document is all the details. So that's all the how are we going to do that area of focus and how will we know we're making progress along the way? What are the resources and supports we need in order to accomplish that area of focus or that goal area? So the details of the action plan, yes, we got some really fantastic ideas on the how-tos and the monitoring of our deployment and those pieces. That would not be a part of the strategic plan. The strategic plan is the big umbrella. You will see the other with the strategic plan. You'd be voting on the strategic plan. The action plan will be a constantly working document.
Update the board because
absolutely.
It's exciting to hear.
Sure. Absolutely. And so the strategic plan, those areas of focus would stay the same. That detailed action plan could morph and change as our work grows, continues, and as we learn more, but the big goal areas of the strategic plan would remain constant.
Thank you, Dr. Woodson. Appreciate the update. And in terms of timing,
second board meeting in January is my goal. And I do say that with some very definite dates at the 1st of January, with continuing to get some input from various stakeholder groups. The Teaching and Learning Division has meetings scheduled with different groups and staff members, so it's not just time for time's sake. We have ongoing work that we currently have planned that will prevent it from being the first board meeting in January.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. We move on to our final item on the agenda this evening, board discussion and liaison reports. Mr. Kite, would you like to get us started with anything?
Sure, just two quick things. Dr. Woodson's already mentioned the advisory council last meeting. I thought that was very interesting. I thought the change in format was different for those in the gallery, which is thinned substantially since earlier this evening. Who weren't there, there was different divisions, had someone at each table, and it was interesting because the crowd kind of rotated, which was nice, kept the blood flowing, and hopefully the ideas flowing, and I guess I was just curious how that went, if you thought the administration got some new ideas. I could see the feedback in serial order.
I had a one-on-one with each division leader on Monday, and each one shared it for different reasons why that was beneficial time to have a true discussion solely specific to their division with broad-based stakeholders, and so it was a valuable time for our senior district leaders.
And the only other thing I was going to mention is our president, Mr. Zwaner, and I had the opportunity to attend the Greenbrier broad-based stakeholder interviews in different rooms of the candidates for principal, and I thought I really enjoyed being a part of that. Own personal preference is to have a little bit of option for some in the room. I appreciate the fact you want to get certain questions answered, but to have a little bit of room for that creative energy, you can have somebody ask a question that's quite unique. But I thought that Ms. Reynolds did such a good job of facilitating. And then Dr. Woodson, when you were in the room for one of the interviews,
I got creative myself.
You got creative, which is a good thing, and so it didn't. But I like the idea of allowing for that process. I just was blown away. I think that the district continues to bring, and I know that's not accidental, and I've expressed this to you individually, continues to bring great people and to the table to be considered, and that just doesn't happen. It's one part reputation, obviously, the district, but a lot of hard work from all the administrators in this central office. So congratulations, we're great hire.
Thank you, Mr. Kite. Mr. Turner.
I don't have a lot this week. It's been a pretty quiet month for me in December, but I know that coming up in the next few days, because of the winter break heading our way, that we're going to have a few things to attend and to enjoy, and hopefully everybody has a great winter break.
Turner, Mrs. Banrati.
As Mr. Kite said, I really enjoyed the different format of the advisory council. That was interesting. I wanted to sit in one spot and just listen to people and answer the same questions over, but I moved around. But it was an interesting process, and I appreciated that. That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Harris.
Well, I do have a couple of things to report back about. One is the IUSA meeting that I attended with Dr. Woodson, and just to mention, I guess, a couple of things that seemed to stand out as being on their radar that maybe should be on our radar. Was that one was they had been discussing trying to have schools that are members track the number of students leaving to go to because of the voucher offer, and as Dr. Woodson and other superintendents pointed out, that the schools they may know that a student's leaving, but they don't know if they're getting a voucher to do so or not. So then there was discussion of the organization submitting a public records request to request that information, and I just want to say that there was much laughter in the room when somebody pointed out that we should also request any emails related to the topic that had been exchanged. Anyway, it was kind of inside humor. But interestingly enough, on the radio, I heard on the radio this evening on the way here a statement. I think it was in an Indiana Business Update that the Department of Ed had stated there have been 4,000 students, I believe, so in the state benefiting from the voucher system. And then the other issue to have on the radar is that because of the flux of students back and forth, and the topic being raised that sometimes the students may leave public school to go to a charter school or private school and then find out their needs are not met there, and they come back, and at that point they aren't counted. They haven't been counted for daily attendance, and so we aren't actually getting tuition support for them. Now the State Department is discussing multiple tuition count days. and apparently this is it's going to be an issue of, well, because some schools are gaining students and some schools are losing students, and the department would propose to adjust funding mid-year, which puts schools in an awkward situation. They have a contract. They can't just dump faculty mid-year because they gain or because they lose students, particularly since they aren't ever all from the same class. So the question is going to be, and I don't know that anything more has happened with this yet or not, but well, no, because one of the updates you sent about the superintendent advisory committee or something was the state superintendent's advisory committee said that you asked for it, you're getting it, and the question is going to be whether we have 2 count days or 4 count days, and the concern is that some of the schools losing a population may want to have a hold on withdrawal of funds, even though the school's gaining population will want funds right away. So that's already been sort of compared to the now disfavored de-ghoster provision. That anyway, so that's just that's up for probable, I think, legislation this session, is my understanding. And then the second thing I wanted to report back on is there was an IB Head Council meeting earlier this week, and it was a very interesting meeting in that the members of the staff of IPS who have gone through the process of IB certification and the approval process, and have also gone through training to go do that, visit other schools as part of that process, were there as a panel to answer questions about that process. And one of the things that I heard very clearly stated and wanted to give a little bit of forewarning about is that they said that it is very valuable to have board members present at those school visits, and because it will be a different team visiting each of our schools, it will be valuable to have board members at each of those reviews for approval. So that's something that will happen in the spring, and Mrs. Smith offered to provide us with as much advance notice as she possibly can so we can try and schedule those, but just so you know that the board will have an active role in that. They also suggested brief, having that it's about time for a kind of an update briefing on IB implementation for the board, so that, because the idea is that we would be there showing that we support our district's move in this direction, not just by voting, but philosophically that we're in agreement. So we will have a little bit of a role in that I found surprising and interesting and not entirely expected on my part. So just to give you the heads up on that, and hopefully we will get Mrs. Smith on the agenda sometime between now and then to fill everyone in on how things are going in that direction.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Any further comments on that?
No, I was going to say we are going to work on a special study session to talk about that exact topic, and you have some proposed dates at your seat.
And that was going to be just a couple of housekeeping items I wanted to share with you. Please look at that with your calendars as soon as you are able and get feedback back to Dr. Woodson or Mrs. Sutton as it's convenient, and by the 19th, please. We have a nice little hosting that we're hoping to do here for East staff a week from this Friday. So I've got a proposed menu out to everybody. If you could get back to me soon with that would be great. 22nd, I'm sorry, it is Thursday. Yes, a week from Thursday. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate any feedback as soon as you can get it to me on our brick inscription, as we discussed this evening. And a reminder about our first draft on policy. If you have any typographical errors you see and would like to recommend changes, or other more substantive changes that we need for legal review, please get those to us here just as soon as you can, so that we can get those vetted by the appropriate folks before we come back with a second reading. And then finally, just point out, depending upon the date of our study session in January here at the district, the ISBA is offering a leadership seminar on the 20th of January, I believe. The agenda looked like it would be very helpful at timely professional development updates on topics that we will be dealing with here throughout the next year. So just offer that to you for your edification. Those are the items I had. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say adjourn.
Adjourn.
Adjourned.